I'm going to start where Aubrey left off, which is going to be on page 380 and slide 18. I'm going to start with International Classification for Nursing Practice, also known as the ICMP. The ICMP is designed to represent nursing diagnoses, outcomes, and interventions capturing the delivery of nursing care across settings. It is an entity of the International Council of Nurses e-health program that was launched to transform nursing through the use of health information and communication technology. It has been developed using a sophisticated language to ensure the sustainability of the ever-expanding terminology and maintain the quality of terminology. The new version of ICMP is released every 2 years in conjunction with the ICN conference. Due to its size and complexity, subsets are created to promote the utility of ICNP in practice. ICNP catalogs or subsets with select nursing diagnoses and interventions have been developed and distributed in collaboration with national nurses associations, health ministries, and governments and experts worldwide. Obviously, to just ensure that everybody's input in like the medical world is factored into this one e-health program so that they can get the most out of communication and health information. So, and when we talk about developed using a sophisticated language to ensure the sustainability of ever-expanding terminology, that is to ensure that as the world changes and as the medical field advances, that it's updated to ensure that they're using the latest terminology and the latest, basically just the latest terminology. So we're going to go on to NANDA, which is going to be on the next slide, and that stands for North American Nursing Diagnosis Association. And then it was changed to NANDA-I for to reflect worldwide use of terminology and establish network teams in Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. So it's defined as a clinical judgment about actual or potential individual, family, or community experiences and responses to health problems and life processes. The purpose of NANDA-I is to ensure consistent, accurate documentation of nurses by clinical reasoning judgments and drive nursing interventions and outcome evaluations. So that falls into what I just talked about, in that they want to include everything worldwide, and like how they change it from NANDA-I for NANDA International, to basically take in and evaluate how the medical field is run worldwide and ensure the best possible outcomes and interventions, or interventions and then outcomes. And then in table 22.5, you can see the three-level structure, an application of NANDA-I, and it just kind of goes over that. I'm not really going to go over that, so I don't just read out of the book. But you can take a look at that. And the purpose, like I said, is to ensure consistent, accurate documentation of nurses by clinical reasoning judgments and drive nursing interventions and outcome evaluations. Next, I'm going to talk about nursing interventions classification. It is a funded research-based standardized classification of interventions describing nursing activities performed directly or indirectly. It's designed to support the communication and documentation of nurses and other healthcare providers. So for nursing interventions classification, choosing a nursing intervention is based on the characteristics of nursing diagnosis and expected patient outcomes. And this one, and nursing outcome classification. So obviously nursing interventions classification and the nursing outcomes classification fall hand in hand because outcomes come from the interventions. Just bear with me, guys. This stuff is hard for me too. So I'm going to go on to nursing outcomes classification. The nursing outcomes classification is also funded, research-based, standardized classification of patient and caregiver outcomes. It can be used in the course of care delivery for any specialty and setting. The College of Nursing has an ongoing collaboration and alliance with NANDA is to establish linkages among 3 nursing classification systems, NANDA, NIC, and NOC. So those are the 3 that I just previously discussed. Whoops, I got out that slide. So like I said, they're establishing linkages among 3 classification systems. So these are all different classification systems, and as you can already tell from what I discussed, they all kind of correlate with each other. And then in table 22.6, it talks about the structure and linkage of NANDA, NIC, and NOC. And there, it kind of sets up the structure, so you can take a look at that. So I'm going to move on to data exchange efforts. So, as health terminologies keep evolving, it's important to incorporate changes in clinical practice, health policy, and advances in science. It's unlikely that in the future any one standard language will be able to support all clinical practices within the different disciplines functioning within the healthcare system. So, it's going to be pretty difficult. So what it's saying, it's going to be pretty difficult to just use one sole language and one sole source of medical terminology. That's why NANDA expanded internationally to incorporate everything around the world to maintain a way of keeping up. Honestly, if you just think about it as the world develops, so is the medical world. It's going to develop, and as technology develops, they're going to have to develop because, and then as our world develops and people start moving from different countries, especially into America, things are going to have to be, the medical world is going to have to advance in order to accommodate all the new medical advances, the different cultures, different treatments. Well, that's medical advances, but it's not going to be able to one standardized language or one standardized way of exchanging data isn't going to be able to support everything that is constantly developing in the medical world. And then we're going to talk about terminology harmonization, which is going to be on 383. Terminology harmonization is regarded as one way to support interoperability, considering variations in terminology adoption in practice. So we're going to touch on interoperability. It's defined as the ability of health information systems to work together within and across organizational boundaries in order to advance the effective delivery of healthcare for individuals and communities. So it's important for all of the health, what I just said, it's important for all the healthcare information systems to be able to work together to create not that like we just said, one language isn't going to be able to sustain a whole like every clinical practice and every discipline within a clinical practice. But it's going to be able to make it run smoother and help healthcare to advance and delivery of healthcare to run smoother. It's just going to create better patient outcomes and better healthcare professional experience as well. And then whoops. So we're going to go on to the next slide. To application of standardized terminologies. So, which is going to be on 384. And this is just talking about multiple ways of communicating and recording patient care data in EHRs. And it touches on 4 different topics: designing user interfaces using terminologies, supporting data retrieval and exchange, monitoring the quality of care, and discovering knowledge through research. So, designing user interfaces using terminologies. The comprehensiveness and completeness of a standardized health terminology vary depending on the domain of interest and the facility. An interface terminology is considered a solution to enhance the user interface in EHRs because of its ability to cover clinicians' preferred terms with rich synonyms and conceptual relations among the terms. So that's under designing user interfaces using terminologies. And then we're going to go on to the next point. We're on slide 24, supporting data retrieval and exchange. So, storing clinical data using standardized terminologies means that data are encoded using concept unique identifiers or alphanumeric codes to prevent any inconsistencies created by typing errors. While coded data can be easily retrieved and transferred to other facilities, using messaging standards, exchanging free text data requires multiple steps for processing. For instance, assume that no structured form exists to document a skin and wound assessment, but only narrative text. Then we're going to go on to monitoring the quality of care. Clinical databases hold massive amounts of structured and unstructured data, along with date and timestamps. Example quality monitoring activities include identification and the following: medication errors, degree of clinicians' adherence to best evidence and guidelines supported through reminders and alerts, and healthcare resource use. Using a standard terminology facilitates the aggregation of patient care data based on predefined conceptual and semantic relationships of the coded data. And then we're going to go on to the next point, discovering knowledge through research. Clinical researchers can benefit from EHRs with functionality and capacity to access complete coded data across care continuum. Huge volumes of clinical and administrative data reside in large repositories, providing additional opportunities for clinical research, as discussed in Chapter 23, opportunities for clinical research. When paper-based records are used for clinical research, the number of review charts is restricted because of the major resource requirements and the time-intensive chart abstraction process. In contrast, clinical research using current EHRs can involve thousands or even millions of patient records, offering the potential to identify new relationships among data. So to conclude, health IT has been seen as a promising solution for improving patient safety, delivering patient-centered care, and reducing healthcare costs. Health practitioners recognize the benefits of using standard terminologies, and clinical-focused coding efforts have advanced with the expansion of electronic health information.